Hi, this is John Pettigrew, and you're listening to Talking Through My Hat, a podcast that explores bookish businesses, the fantastic people who create them, and what those people have learned. I'm a hat wearer, a recovering editor, and the creator of Futureproofs, enabling editors and authors to work better online. To find out more, visit wearefutureproofs.com or follow me on Twitter at John_Pettigrew. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. As I record this, we're still in the middle of a most remarkable English summer. The heat is already kicking in and it's only 8:30 in the morning. But this interview with Emmanuel Nataf I recorded a few weeks ago, and I'm afraid again I was in a meeting room with a significant echo in the background, so I do apologise for the audio quality on my end of the call. But Emmanuel and his company Reedsy are absolutely fascinating. It was a really great conversation. So without any more ado, over to the interview. Welcome to Talking Through My Hat. Today I'm talking with Emmanuel Nataf, co-founder and CEO at Reedsy, an award-winning startup that helps authors and publishers build teams to get books published. Their platform helps connect freelancers with the people who need them and gives the team tools and support to get their books finished. So welcome to Talking Through My Hat, Emmanuel.
Hey John, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So let's start by talking about Reedsy. What was the original idea, and has that kind of evolved and changed over the past few years, or are you still very much on that original plan?
Yeah, so we're pretty much on the original plan, even though it probably took a lot longer than we initially expected. But
I can
that's
relate
life.
To that,
yeah. But it's been quite an amazing experience building it, growing it, and getting feedback from users. It's been a super rewarding experience. There's been pretty steep learning curve actually at the very beginning, but now it feels like we know what we're doing a little bit better than when we initially started, which is a pretty cool feeling as a founder.
Yeah.
The original idea was simply my co-founders and I, we got Kindles and we started to learn about the industry, and it just all felt so broken. Mm-hmm. That we just that we had to do something about it. And we just started to dig in and interview people, and I remember conducting dozens of interviews just to get a sense of how the industry worked. Mm-hmm. And it was never getting any better. Every time I would talk to someone else, I would always feel whoa man, there's something super backwards about the whole process. And at the same time, there was that wonderful thing, which is the Kindle and Kindle Direct Publishing, which made self-publishing, kind of an alternative to traditional publishing, something really cool for whoever was kind of entrepreneurial minded, or who would be into DIY kind of things. So it felt like that distribution model would change the industry. But I was struggling to see, apart from a few exceptions, I was struggling to see a significant number of authors taking advantage of that, simply because they didn't really have the right resources to take their manuscript to the next level, to something that could compete with what traditional publishers would publish.
Trying to put that team together, isn't it? So, you can't do it all by yourself.
And again at the same time, I remember reading an article about the freelance economy and how people were moving away from traditional publishers and just starting their careers as freelancers, and I thought that was pretty amazing, but there was no easy way of finding them. So it was okay, there's a lot of people looking to publish content, and I was guessing that a significant chunk of that would be people looking to publish good quality content.
I hope so.
I was just guessing because there's some human beings looking to produce high quality stuff, and they wouldn't necessarily find the right resources. That was kind of a guess on that part, on that end. But on the other end, there was a growing market of people self-publishing. There were more and more freelancers available on the market to provide services. So it felt like something was changing, and we wanted to be part of that and be an enabler for the whole process. So we started out by reaching out to a few relatively famous freelancers. So we had Stephen King's designer as one of our very first designers.
Okay, cool.
And then we kept going like that, and we ended up with some people who had worked on the most famous books that had been published in the past few years. So it was a way for us to start attracting authors, because they would see that we would be focusing on getting the kind of like the elite in the industry, the best freelancers who could provide editorial, design, and marketing services. So at first, it was a very, very slow process. So we had to find our early adopters.
Yeah.
And we did find some really amazing people along the way, in different ways. And those people had they've helped us build our community by providing services on Reedsy, by helping us produce high quality content that would help authors navigate the publishing process, and by just by being early adopters and giving nice feedback to us, that helped us tremendously, essentially.
Yeah. Cool.
So now we have just over 1,000 freelancers available on the marketplace. We've become extremely strong, just to help authors for pretty much every genre now. We do 2/3 of the books we work on fiction, and 1/3 is nonfiction.
That's great.
And we've kind of managed to. We still have to grow Reedsy. We still have to scale the company. But since 2015 and the release of the very first product that we were not even charging for at the very beginning, we were just testing things out and making sure that we would be able to provide enough value that we could charge for the product. Since we started that in 2015, we've helped bring to market over 6,000 books now. So it's something that we're quite proud of.
So it must be interesting because, of course, Reedsy is a kind of a classic marketplace offer. You need to have a bunch of authors who need services and all those freelancers who are going to supply the services. Which side of that, because you have to build both, because one by itself isn't a business. Which of those was kind of harder for you, or which one did you have to concentrate on first? How did that kind of come together?
Yeah, so at the very, very, very beginning, meaning our first few months, we built the supply, we built the freelancer side, because we needed something just to provide service.
Yeah, that's your seed, really, isn't it? Yeah.
And we needed to be able to show that we had good people as well. So Reedsy has always been a curated marketplace, accepting about 2% of all the applications we get. Okay. So at the very beginning, we were looking for freelancers to provide services. Now we're still looking for freelancers. Yeah. But we're not making really efforts from that standpoint, because we get hundreds of applications every week to be listed. And it's still our job it's more than reaching out to freelancers. It's our job to curate and make sure that we only accept people who can provide good quality services.
Okay.
So the author side has been like the side on which we've been focusing on. Yeah. We even built a product for publishers, because publishers started outsourcing more and more of their production. But we stopped marketing it because we found the self-publishing market to be gigantic. And so we found out that making that effort didn't really make sense for us. Okay. So even though we still have a product for publishers and we get a few publishers signing up every day, so small imprints, we stopped marketing to actual publishers, and we've been focusing on authors.
So I find it's quite interesting. As you said, you've referenced this a few times. It's quite like quite a lot of startup founders. You and your co-founders came from outside the industry that you're now working in. Yeah. What was it about publishing specifically? Why did you decide to found a company in book publishing rather than, tech or finance or, whatever else it might have been? What was it about publishing that really attracted you?
Yeah, so if you look at the founding team of Reedsy, we're all fairly creative individuals. We love creative industries in general. So I'm a photographer in my spare time. My co-founder Matt is a designer. He was actually an architect before starting Reedsy. Our CTO Vincent, so first developer, our CTO was considering stopping development and started to a writing career just before joining us. So it's basically for the four of us. It's basically a space that we were really interested in. Because we're interested in creative industries. So we don't really limit ourselves to book publishing. We pretty much love all creative industries, basically.
That's really. And how did the four of you come to know each other? Were you kind of friends before that, or was it kind of the business that brought you together?
Yeah, so a mix. So Ricardo and I, so Ricardo, who is in charge of our marketing, basically, we went to business schools in France together. So we went into super boring business schools and studied like some really boring stuff and wasted a lot of time, and but we were, I mean, really, really good friends, and we, and when started to think about building Reedsy, I just mentioned it to him, and he thought that was pretty cool idea. And then we were like, we wanted the company to be really design driven, as opposed to like being market driven. Right. So, meaning that we had that idea that if we built a certain product, we would create demand that kind of exists, but doesn't really know it exists until it's seen the product that we have to show them.
Yeah. So people know they have a problem, but they don't quite understand it, and you can explain it to them and solve it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was kind of like the idea, instead of just following a market, which felt super backwards, essentially.
Yeah.
So like sometimes you see a market opportunity and you go for it, and it's obvious that there's one and you just go for it. But sometimes, like the market won't tell you really what it needs. So you have your idea in your very autistic world, and you try to see whether it actually fits reality or not. So that's kind of like the approach that we took. So Matt was basically, there's a social network called Behance, and we decided that we wanted like a designer to be part of the co-founding team. And we found Matt because he had designed a Mac application for Facebook that became extremely popular on Behance. So he was basically ranking as like, well, it was the number one designer that would show up on Behance whenever you would look for web designers in London.
So you're kind of cherry picking the best to work with you.
So we got really lucky because Matt had broken his collarbone that summer. So he was stuck in front of his computer and he was looking for something cool to do. So so that's
and you persuaded him that was you.
So I'm super happy he broke his collarbone because that contributed to like getting him bored. So in the end, that was pretty cool. And lastly, Vincent. So we obviously needed like someone with actual technical skills to build a product that could scale. So today we have over 100,000 users on Reedsy, and like if you spend some time on it, you'll see that we don't have a single bug, something we're quite proud of. So we basically found Vincent very randomly on a pretty random Ruby on Rails forum because we had determined that was the technology we wanted to use. But that's how we found him essentially. But like the finding co-founders was a super long process. From the moment when started to think about building it until the moment when we had the whole co-founding team, it probably took almost a year.
Wow,
that was extremely long.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. You said earlier you've been at business school, and one of the questions I like to ask people is kind of how you go about learning to run a business or how to run a business better. I'm guessing you had probably more of an academic background in this than most of us do. Did you find that useful when it came to the practical reality of it, or did you find yourself having to go to books or to people or to whatever to find out how to make it work?
For me, going into a business school was the worst decision ever. I mean, I'm self-taught and I'm not designed to go into any kind of schools. It's just like the way I function. So I was put into that environment because it's what you're supposed to be doing.
Right.
That's like society, that imposed that upon me. The years I spent in that business school, the only thing I was thinking of is like, when do I start that company? Because I need it really badly. It's for like my mental health. Like I needed it really, really badly. It's like the only thing the thing I needed to to feel like something was happening with my life essentially.
But that goal of founding a business was kind of definitely there right from the start, was it?
Yeah, so what really taught me how to run a business was starting a business myself. Was going on to company's house website, spending I can't remember if it's £20 or whatever, but setting up the corporation, and just setting up the different details that you need to set up your corporation, and then just learning as we go, as you go. So it's just I'd never studied any kind of legal business legal stuff. But the first time I was given this term sheet from an investor, or the first time I had to work on our shareholder agreement, well, I just I took the thing and I just read the clauses and I asked questions, and now all those terms make sense to me, and that's how I learned. It's just there was a lot of hustling at the very beginning to make things happen.
Yeah,
there was some reading. So like there's a few books that I read that probably helped me understand like the startup world and how to raise money and everything. Like I remember one summer reading something called Venture Deals by Brad Feld, who is an investor with the Fundry Group. So a pretty famous VC firm, and that book Venture Deals is really good if you just want to understand like the very basics of startup funding, basically. So that's the kind of things I did, but mostly I learned by doing.
Learn by doing. Yeah. You mentioned that you came kind of looking at Company House and putting the business together. Why did you decide to set up Reedsy in the UK rather than in France? Because you're from France. Yeah. I mean, your co-founders are from all over the place to some extent, aren't they? But what was it about the UK that brought you here?
So like there's a mix of things. So there's probably like my personality that I just like moving to different places and just like experiencing different cultures and everything. It's just like something I like. But on top of it, we didn't have a market in France. Like the French publishing industry is super backwards, very traditional.
Even compared to the UK.
And a lot more. And like, so we just didn't have a market. Like, like where would you find like self-publishing authors in France? Like you wouldn't. Like self-publishing was like really like a dodgy concept you wouldn't want to talk about. Like, it's like you were really like miserable if you had to self-publish. So like that transition happened a lot later in France. Okay. So that was one reason. The second reason is like, again, that has changed, but there was a lot more money in England for startups than there was in France. Okay. I remember like knocking at the door, like my co-founder Ricardo knocking at the door of a VC in France, and the VC telling him like, "Oh, you went to that school? Well, then you have money. You don't need my money. You can just like self-fund your business." Okay. And we're like, okay, that's weird. And we got super lucky because we came across something called Seedcamp, which is basically, they used to be a startup accelerator, and now they're more like an early stage fund. Yeah. And they helped us take our idea, and turn it into an actual company. One of the partners, Carlos, he trusted us he trusted a few kids to build a business. Like when we joined Seedcamp, Matt was 21. I was 23. We were like some of the youngest founders they had ever invested in. Right. So they kind of yelled at us a few times at the very beginning, and then we managed to make it work. But like, so Carlos was our first customer and investor. So he published a book with us, went through the entire, self-published a book with us, so went the entire journey.
That's one way of learning, isn't it? Have your investor be your first customer. That's must be very nerve-wracking.
Yeah. So Seedcamp helped us because they gave us money and because they were interested in the space, but also because they had built a huge network of companies. Yeah. We could ask any kind of questions too. So they have a portfolio of over 300 companies today, and even today, whenever I have a question, we have that group where I can just ask anything, and I know that within 24 hours I'll have a few responses, and I'll know what to do next.
That's great.
So it's been extremely helpful. And then there's just general curiosity, if you go on Twitter, you'll see I follow really limited number of people because I know that they can bring a lot to me, and and every day I'll read a few articles that will teach me some stuff, and then just a few newsletters that so running a business, it's really a lot about doing it, but sometimes there's a few people who can speed up the process for you, and typically Seedcamp did that for us.
So when you think about, Reedsy's been going for a few years now. Do you tend to have a plan for kind of the next 5 years, next 10 years and stuff? Or is it more, this is the next thing we have to do and doing it stepwise?
Yeah. So I look at at the next 12 to 18 months,
Uh-huh.
but I don't really look any further.
Yeah.
Because like every time I've tried to make like bigger plans, like it's been like total bullshit. So I just
Yeah.
completely stopped doing that. And now I just look at the next, 12 to 18 months. I look at mainly what's the next big product that we're going to launch or next big feature we're gonna launch, and try to get a sense of what resources I need for it and what can I get out of it.
Yeah. Do you have a kind of have a bigger goal that's just further out there that this is what we want to be? But as you say, you
Yeah,
can't actually plan 5 years ahead because you have no idea what the world's going to look like then. But
yeah. The general idea is super simple. I want authors, when they think of like publishing a book, to just like, think of Reedsy. So I want to be the kind of like ecosystem where like any kind of like modern author turns to whenever they're thinking of like writing a book, finding resources, learning about the publishing journey. That's the place I want Readsy to
yeah,
be, essentially. So that's kind of like the overall idea. So that's why, on top of having a marketplace, we have a book production tool that exports EPUB and PDF files that are ready for distribution.
yeah,
That's why we also have Readsy Learning, which is a free online publishing school with over
yeah.
30,000 students, where we teach people, anything from writing until, marketing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what gives you that. Okay, that's where I want to be. What's the next big step? What's the next feature? The next product we need to have to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So that's why the one bit that's really missing to Readsy right now is helping authors with marketing. It's something that, we've started. We've produced high quality content. We have book marketers on the marketplace, but
yeah,
we know that we can do a lot more. So the next step for us is to basically build something that can help authors with marketing a little bit better than what we've been able to do so far.
okay, cool. Oh well, we'll keep our eyes open for that. That'd be great.
Yep. Yep.
So as you look back over the last few years, what have you learned about yourself from kind of running the business? As you say, you learned from business school that you didn't like business school. What have you learned from doing Readsy? I'm guessing you've probably learned that you enjoy doing Readsy just from listening to you speak. But
Yeah.
what do you think about yourself now that you maybe didn't then?
So I think one of the things I learned is like that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. Um,
Hard
so,
lesson for us all, isn't it?
um, but like overall, I think obviously as a founder, you try to like give the company some shape, and like you try to like you know um, you try to have a vision for it. But weirdly, I think the company's made me a lot. I probably wasn't that much before starting Readsy. I knew how to do a few things, but I think I'd say like that the company's made me more than I've made it.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So like the company overall and the people who we added and our customers and our investors, they taught me more. They helped me like become evolve a little bit, grow a bit more mature in the
Yeah.
past few years.
Great. And what is that you then find hardest about running Reedy, about running a business just day by day? What's the bits that you have to bring yourself to do rather than leaping into with full joy?
So it's something that I intend to probably change in the future. But as I said, like hiring is like the most it's probably like when you find a really great addition to the team, you're kind of proud of yourself.
Yeah.
But it takes so long for it to happen
Yeah.
that it can become extremely frustrating.
But what's the thing that keeps you coming back every day to work on this?
First it's the team. I love my co-founders and I love the people who joined us since we started. So I get to talk to pretty much everyone every day. So learning from them is probably one of the things I love the most. And then there's like the upcoming products that we're designing and building. That for me super exciting.
Yeah.
It often feels like building a new company again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of thrilling, and I love it.
That's a great note on which to end. Thanks you very much for your time, Emmanuel.
No, thank you, John.
I do love talking to people who have really thought about their business and how they go about it and really care for books. And as Emmanuel said, he and his team came from outside the industry and are trying to make a difference to the way that authors and publishers and everybody can work because they care about the books. I love the way that he's saying, he was trying to lead the market, to be design driven rather than market driven. There's a lot of advice over, follow the market, follow the customer. But often the market doesn't actually know what it needs. If you're trying to do something different, you do actually need to lead and get out in front and try out some ideas that people haven't thought of. And also this idea from Emmanuel that he just had to found a business. Quite a lot of the people I've talked to on the podcast have founded their businesses kind of accidentally. It's something that's happened to them, or they've made a decision because of what's been going on in their professional life or their personal life. But for Emmanuel, it was just something he needed to do for his own mental health. He said, he just hated being in business school. He had to get out and actually do it himself. And that consequence that he prefers self-education, reading books rather than kind of formal learning. And also advice to consider the geography when starting your business. Although he is from France, they set the business up in the UK because that's where the readers were, that's where the industry was and the authors were. So it's really, you've got to think about other countries, you've got to think about funding, you've got to think about all sorts of things. And I love that. So thanks very much for tuning back in to listen to this episode. Next week's episode, I'm talking to Beck Evans of Prolifico, which is a writing productivity app for authors. So it kind of follows quite neatly on from this episode with Reese. So do tune in next week, and I hope you have a good week until then. This was Talking Through My Hat, a podcast by John Pettigrew, founder of We Are Futureproofs. Please let me know your thoughts by leaving a review at Apple Podcasts or by commenting on the website, myhat.wearefutureproofs.com. You can subscribe to this channel at Apple Podcasts, Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Our theme music is from hooksounds.com.